So now I'm going to talk about the chordates, the last group of animals in the last group of organisms in the survey of life. The chordates include all animals with a notochord at some point in their life. Um, this is a very basic cladogram showing the evolution of the chordates. The most primitive chordates are the jawless fish, which we're going to talk about as lampreys. The next most advanced group were the cartilaginous fish, which are the sharks, the skates, and the rays. From some ancient cartilaginous fish came the first bony fish, which includes really all the rest of the fish on Earth, from guppies to tuna. From those, the first amphibians arose, which are now today frogs, salamanders, toads, newts. And from some ancient amphibians, the first reptiles came about. Reptiles diverged into three broad groups: mammals, birds, and dinosaurs. And so I'll elaborate more as we're moving through, but there is a primitive chordate that we're going to talk about that evolved before the jawless fish and before the vertebrates, and that's the lancelets, also called amphioxus. Tunicates we won't talk about, but they're also called sea squirts. They're little translucent bags that suck in water and filter food from the water. And then fish, amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals are coming up in this discussion. All chordates have bilateral symmetry and a notochord. Bilateral symmetry means they got a right and a left, and the notochord means they got a rod of cartilage going down their back. In the vertebrates, the rod of cartilage becomes a vertebral column, and they also have pharyngeal gill slits. Those are neck slits. They have slits in their necks for breathing. In fact, you as a human being had slits in your neck when you were an embryo, but those slits closed up and the cells actually grew down into your chest cavity and became lungs. Vertebrates experienced an explosion in Hox genes. We think a fourfold increase occurred due to a mutation that allowed for building more complex structures. And like the neural crest, which is the brain and spinal cord, big heads, big mouths, and a big body for eating. So bigger predators for eating bigger prey. And so now let's talk about the very first group of chordates, the primitive lancelets. They look like fish without a head. The tail's usually stuck in the sand. The slits here actually are for filtering microbes from the water. This is their digestive tract. The anus is at number 7 there. They have a notochord going down their backs for support. That's a picture of an actual little lancelet. They're very primitive. They do not have a vertebral column. They are not vertebrates, but they are chordates because they have a notochord. And they are actually in the sands. You can find them in Florida, sticking out of the sand. They only get an inch or two long. They're very small. Now, once these little lancelets evolved, some ancient lancelet form evolved into the first vertebrates. Now, this sort of shows the evolutionary history of the vertebrates. The first vertebrates evolved into the jawless fish. The next line that came, like I mentioned before, was the cartilaginous fish, and then there was the bony fish. You'll notice there's a shrinkage right here on this line. Like the animals are evolving and then they shrink. This is called the Permian extinction line right here. It was the biggest mass extinction in the history of Earth. It was, we think maybe 250 million years ago, and wiped out like 96% of all life on Earth. And all of the animals that are alive today got through the Permian extinction. So we'll talk more about now the evolution of those forms. For the first group, the jawless fish include the lampreys. They lack paired fins. They have external pharyngeal gill slits. They have primitive eyes. They have vertebra to protect their spinal cord. They have a sucker mouth, which is right here. You can see it with spikes, and they attach to the sides of fish, and they suck the juices out of them, and they're totally gross. So basically, this group is rather primitive. They don't have the paired fins for really accurate swimming and turning. They tend to swim in the water more like a snake moves in the water. But they were an advancement over the lancelets. The next group, the cartilaginous fish, includes sharks, skates, and rays. Now this group actually has paired fins. They have, in addition to that, they have the dorsal fin, the caudal fin, which is the tail fin, And then they have pelvic fins and pectoral fins. They have poor eyesight but excellent sense of smell. They're great hunters, and hence the movie Jaws. They have the highest crushing pressure in their jaws of any animal in the animal kingdom. Oddly, they must swim with their mouths open constantly to move water over their gill slits. They have the external gill slits. If they stop swimming and don't have water moving through their mouths, they'll suffocate and die. So they swim even when they're asleep. Cartilaginous fish are cold-blooded, although some sharks do maintain a slightly warmer body temperature than ocean water. Um, the whale shark is a cartilaginous fish. It's the largest fish in the seas. Um, the next group, the bony fish, includes all the other fish on the planet. Oddly, most of the skeleton is actually cartilage, but the brain and the spinal cord is well protected inside of the vertebrae, which are bony, and the skull, which is bony. Their hearts have only one atrium and one ventricle, like the sharks, which pump blood around the body. That's kind of primitive, but it works. The human heart has 4 chambers. Fish hearts have only 2. Bony fish, like the sharks, are generally poikilothermic, meaning they're cold-blooded. And the bony fish are the largest class of vertebrates on Earth, and they live in all watery habitats around the world. The list is enormous. The list of species in this group is enormous, from gar, catfish, sunfish, bass, minnows, darters, chub, carp, sturgeon, paddlefish, tuna, sculpin, sea bass, angelfish, salmon, and many more are all in this group. So I've got a few pictures: smallmouth bass, seahorse, clownfish, and sunfish, but it's a tremendous group. Next group, the amphibians. Most of the amphibian skeleton is bone. They survive on skin. Unlike fish, which excrete ammonia, which is pretty toxic as a waste product, amphibians excrete urea, which is less toxic, which is a good adaptation for living on land. They're poikilothermic again, will actually die if they're warmed too much. Fish do the same thing. You warm them up too much and they die. Their skeletons are almost all bone, not cartilage, unlike fish, which are mostly cartilage and not bone. Frogs may have been the first vocal animals on Earth, screaming to attract mates. Amphibians use metamorphosis to bridge the life between water and land. They lay their eggs in water, which hatch into fish-like little tadpoles, which then get big and then metamorphose into the adult frog. So the amphibians evolved into what now we have are modern frogs, toads, salamanders, and newts. So that's the amphibians. And then come the reptiles. The reptiles are better suited to land. But their bodies are covered by scales made of keratin. So unlike the amphibians, which survive on land because they tolerate water loss, reptiles survive on land because they resist water loss. Their scales keep the water in. Reptiles, unlike the amphibians, reptiles like to be warm. Amphibians like to be cold. Reptiles, though, use sunlight to make themselves warm. They don't have a way of generally making internal body heat. Reptiles are the first to lay shelled eggs with an amnion, a chorion, a yolk sac, and an allantois, the 4 membranes that actually keep the embryo alive inside the egg. They excrete a different excretory product than urea. It's called uric acid. Uric acid allows them to be drought tolerant because you can almost excrete your urine in a paste form with almost no water with it. So you lose almost no water in urination. If you're going to excrete ammonia, you have to urinate a huge amount of water to dilute it. If you're going to excrete urea, you can urinate less water because urea is less toxic. The white stuff that you see in like snake poop and bird poop, that is uric acid. It's an adaptation for resisting dehydration. Reptile skeletons are almost all bone. Reptiles do not use metamorphosis like amphibians. The babies are born looking just like their parents, like we do. We are born looking like little humans. We don't have, fish gills. Modern reptiles include tortoises, turtles, lizards, skinks, snakes, and the crocodilians. Now, reptiles adaptively radiated around the world, and they evolved into 3 huge groups: the birds, the dinosaurs, and the mammals. Excuse me. The skulls can kind of help tell the differences between the 3 groups, although so do body coverings. Scales are on the reptiles, feathers on the birds, and mammals have fur. We think dinosaurs had leathery skin and feathers, but evidence is still piling up. The skulls of reptiles, the dinosaur bird lineage, they have two extra holes besides the eye and nose. They're called diapsids. The mammals only have one extra hole, and like our skull only has an ear hole along with the eye and the nose hole. We're called a synapsid. And the turtles, oddly, a very primitive reptilian group, have no extra holes in the skull, no ear hole at all. They feel vibrations, but they don't hear like we do. They have an eye and a nose hole. So all three reptile groups have eye and nose hole. These extra holes made for odd adaptations of the skulls. So now let's talk about the dinosaurs. Dinosaurs were the largest land-dwelling animals to ever walk the earth. The two main groups were the Saurischians and the Ornithischians. The Saurischians were the theropods, the large predators that walked on two legs like the T-Rex, and then the large herbivores like the brachiosaurs, which walked on all fours. The Ornithischians include like hadrosaurs, ankylosaurs, and other armored dinosaurs. They had like a bird-like pelvis. That's why they're called the Ornithischians, which means they're bird-like. The dinosaurs all got wiped out about 65 million years ago, we think, due to a comet striking the Earth, causing a global climate catastrophe. So, unless we have a Jurassic Park, we're not going to have any more dinosaurs on Earth. The last two groups are the birds and the mammals. Birds are amazingly suited to terrestrial life. They, like the reptiles, excrete uric acid, which is an excellent adaptation for tolerating life on land. The mouths of a bird are not for chewing. They became beaks for swallowing food whole. Birds have very keen sight, much better than reptiles, and birds can generally see better than humans. Birds are homeothermic. They can maintain an internal constant body temperature. Their metabolism is higher than mammals. They have a very high metabolism. Their heart has two atria and two ventricles, and their hearts pump faster than mammal hearts. The feathers are made of keratin and insulate the body and allow them to fly. And they also lay shelled eggs like the reptiles. And they have internal fertilization. So the eggs are fertilized inside the female, but then shells grow around the embryos, and then the female lays the eggs outside the body. So black-capped chickadees, red-tailed hawks, Canada goose, and wild turkeys are four minor examples of the huge group, the largest group of land-dwelling vertebrates on Earth. And then the last group, the mammals, which includes us, includes the largest of the largest mammals, I should say, include the whales. But all mammals have fur at some point in their life, made of keratin, mammary glands for nursing the young. Birds have no mammary glands to feed young. They have to vomit to feed their kids. Mammals have internal fertilization like birds do, but we have internal development, which birds don't. We have internal development-wise, we have the same membranes that the bird egg has. The amnion, the chorion, the allantois, and the yolk sac, except that they have no shell around them. Mammals are homeothermic and endothermic. High metabolism, not as high as birds. Hearts with 4 chambers don't pump as fast as birds, but it still handles rapid blood flow. The human body, which some of you will take a study of next year in anatomy, will give you an excellent example of the internal anatomy of a mammal, but we're not going to go into internal anatomy here because that's beyond the scope of a survey. The placental mammals, which includes humans, includes the bats, rodents, carnivores, whales, armadillos, rabbits, ungulates, which are things like sheep, deer, elk, and bison, which walk on hooves, and insectivores, which are things like shrews. The largest land animals, which are elephants, are in this group. So that concludes kind of the discussion of the survey of life. I will see you all in class.